Crystal and I got married in 2014. We got married twice because this was when we needed to go elsewhere outside of North Carolina. So we went to Washington, D.C. to get a civil ceremony and be legal in a place. And then we came back the next week and we got married in our church and had a hell of a party. It was really great to have that time with community and we had no idea how much fun that was going to be. The next year, about the time of our anniversaries, Crystal was having some weird symptoms, and she was diagnosed with cancer. By early 2016, she was gone. Our relationship by calendar was 10 months, 10 years, a month, and 2 days. But that's really not much of a story. So I want to tell some deeper stories. My challenge has been to know what stories to tell, because there's infinite stories, even in a decade together. And even if there weren't just infinite stories, there's infinite ways to tell those stories. And so I've been thinking about this a lot in being here today. And one reason all these stories are fascinating to me, and it's been deep work, is because each time I encounter the stories, they're different. I recall them differently, I tell them differently. Having your presence here today, I'm telling them differently. And just having someone listen to my stories changes me. So in your presence and in your listening, I'm shifting. So these stories are ongoing. And so I just want to hold this space and time today as our opportunity to change together. I have a quote I'd like to share that helps me make sense of living my story as a transformative change process. This is from Arnold van Gennep, who coined the term Rites of Passage. So the quote goes, "Life itself means to separate and to be reunited, to change form and condition, to die and to be reborn. It is to act and to cease, to wait and rest, and then to begin acting again, but in a different way. And there are always new thresholds to cross." So for me, compelling stories are about crossing new thresholds. Perhaps listening to stories can bring to mind new notions of thresholds to be crossed. With this in mind, I'll share some stories about my last months with Crystal. So when she first had some odd, disparate symptoms in early 2015, we didn't know what was to come. She was tired all the time, and her symptoms didn't really cause immediate concern, but she wanted to get them checked out. But within a few weeks, we had a stage 4 diagnosis and a plan of action that was just tenuous. She had been just about to start a new job. I had plans, and everything shifted like an avalanche. Our base was gone. All our plans became emergent, and we felt like we were in an emergency. As I was grappling with this, I spoke with Glenda about her experience with John and how they navigated finding grace together and separate in that knowing that a big transition was coming, and how important that separate and together part was. And as our life was taken over with doctor's appointments and treatment sessions, Crystal vented to me about how, when offering support, well-intentioned medical staff would say, "We're with you all the way." And she did not buy that nonsense. She knew well that she was ultimately alone on her path, despite all the help anyone could offer. The statement, "treatment, not a cure," had been uttered. I empathized with her anger, and it was anger. She got tired of hearing this lie. A lie because she felt so distinctly and starkly alone. And it was just too much to hold inside. I could only serve as a witness, and venting to me wasn't enough. So one night, she went out and screamed into the woods behind our house till she no longer had voice. She was good at knowing what she needed, even if she couldn't get what she needed, really. Glenda's reflection and Crystal's reality changed me and changed our relationship. A wise friend told me, a cancer diagnosis is not one person's reality, it is a system reality. I've also come to realize it is both an avalanche and a creeping realization. As Crystal began treatment, she chose to spend her time in the chemotherapy clinic alone. She wouldn't even let me walk her in. So each time I drove home alone to wait for her call, I hated leaving. I didn't get anything done while waiting. But I also wanted to honor her choice that gave her the slightest bit of control. And I too needed my alone time. I worked from home, and I would go up to my office and shut the door and have time to work, but also to connect with people that I wanted to talk to process what I was going through, my anxiety, my wonderings. I came across the term anticipatory grief, and the mere existence of such a term gave me great grounding. There was not a start time for grief in this process, and I'm pretty sure there's no end time either. Framing this uncertainty gave me a way to deal with changes day to day. For instance, I could determine who offered me what kind of support that felt right in the moment, and I really got better at asking for it. One morning after breakfast together, I turned to head upstairs as per usual, and I heard this quiet voice say, "You do know I'm dying, right?" I turned back, sat down, and we had a very deep conversation, more so than we'd had in weeks. We really needed to connect as us. I didn't go to my office after that. I found ways to do whatever I needed to in the living room. That living room was a more important place to be. Another time, Crystal was having a day where nothing was going well. She felt lousy and irritable, and that came out towards me. We were supposed to be going somewhere, I don't know where, and she really was taking out all her frustrations, and I was the one there. So she started on the fact that I still had choices and control, and I had no idea what it was like to be her. So we got out to the car, and I began driving, but we just had this heavy tension. She was right. We were dealing with very different realities. We went a few miles in silence, and again I heard this voice. "I'm sorry. It's just that I wanted to grow old with you." We sobbed our way across another threshold. Again, she had broken attention, naming what we were avoiding. She was so courageous in getting to the heart of the matter. An incurable cancer diagnosis is not one person's reality. It's a system reality. We were so fortunate to have a wonderful system of family and friends that supported us in myriad ways, from meals to walks to deep research into cutting-edge treatment options. we each had different ways we connected with this greater whole. I handled the detailed what we know, what we don't know, and still emerging questions, emails to friends and family after every medical appointment. This helped me stay focused and grounded and think about what do we know now, what's knowable, and what's unknowable. And I found it really calming to get the known details down, get those out to people, to start to explore the unknowable, like if we're shifting regimens and what do we need to do for our schedules and working with others. And I just put the unknowable aside. Writing this also helped me provide boundaries. So I didn't have to talk to people over and over about all these updates because that was just too exhausting. I was grateful that people respected those boundaries so I could save my energy for my girl. And this sharing that I was doing took a lot of burden off Crystal so that she could write in her blog and connect with people in the way she wanted to. She wrote posts as the Spirit moved her, and she really enjoyed developing her audience, which started responding to her. Families and friends that she knew, and people from my circle she had never met, and then it got broader. She could be very upbeat, and she could be brutally honest. She worked hard to keep a comedic edge while sharing her emotions from gratitude to anger. She was beautifully authentic and quite adept at making interesting connections. One of her favorite series was Lonesome Dove, and she could just recall dialogue from that, pull it up, and tell a story about that scene and then relate it to something in her life. It was beautiful. She was cheered on from around the world. So she was alone in her journey, but not alone at all, or both. Crystal developed another lovely outfit for her creativity, inspired by her dad's wife, who makes greeting cards. She began a creativity group at our church, and people showed up that knew they had no creativity at all but wanted to hang out with Crystal. This group is still going. They meet regularly at church in the small group. They also go to a women's in residence recovery home down the street from our church, and they work with up to 50 women who now have ways of connecting with their family and friends with something that they made, and it's very meaningful to them. At church, they offer these cards for donation, and they've raised thousands of dollars and supported a lot of different projects. They get to choose each month who they're going to support. And they sent me a list, and I was kind of blown away by the variety of groups they're helping, also around the world. So that's still going strong. They've established and strengthened connections for families within and far beyond our congregation. So I love how Crystal shared her spirit and still shares her spirit. Our base shifted, yet is reestablished. Going back to the earlier quote I mentioned, life itself means to separate and to be reunited, to change form and condition, to die and to be reborn. It is to act and to cease, to wait and rest, and then to begin acting again, but in a different way. And there are always new thresholds to cross. I have more appreciation for life's stretch and fold moments that arise when we see the need to act again, but in a different way. I'm grateful that I had my time with Crystal, and it's been a wonderful portion of my life, even as she crossed the threshold that changed our physical presence we had together. My journey is still unfolding. I have new relationships with my stories as memories, with myself, and with the people and things I've encountered beyond my life with my wife. Choosing what stories to tell is part of my ongoing stretch and fold. Speaking my stories changes them and changes me and potentially changes you. One more quick quote. Things can be both immensely difficult and intensely beautiful at the same time. You don't have to hide either side. Remember, the night sky is eerily desolate and also full of everything all at once. This quote represents conversations I've had with another recent widow. We have both been repeatedly amazed how beautiful we find the world, even without our spouses by our sides today. We share our stories, our wonderings in the midst of the night sky. Our futures are full of unknowns despite any planning efforts we do. For me, this session is an invitation to invite each of us to consider the unknown as we share and listen and make some new meaning together. I think this can open up new opportunities for the future, separately and perhaps together. So I welcome this opportunity to change with and be changed by you. Thank you.